Can you comment, Glenn, on, because you deal with a lot of our members directly, especially the members that are really serious about growing their business, like the people on this meeting. Can you comment on the relationship between working with business clients versus 1040 clients, and how do you see that impacting or not, like how people are growing their business, how they're hireable or not hireable? How does that play into kind of the overall opportunity, do you think?
Well, it's been great. And actually, a bunch of folks that are on the call tonight took advantage of our two lists. And I kind of want to pick their brain and see how it's going with them. But definitely, the Dream Team members seem to have more skills, I think, than the non-Dream Team members. And so they're taking advantage of.
You have to play with it right after you distinguish it.
Hold on one second. Hey, Sean.
Yeah, sorry, I just muted myself.
Oh, okay. Anyway, so a lot of them have taken advantage of the two lists that we had available, and so the Dream Team members, like I mentioned earlier, they have I think more experience than our non-Dream Team members. I don't know if that's good or bad, but obviously, but as you can see on the list of people that are here tonight, most of them they're all Dream Team members for one thing, and they've taken advantage of the job skills, including Sean. For instance, Heather.
Yes.
What are you doing right now with your with the names that I gave you?
Actually, I just got off an interview right before this call. And it was really great. I think we are going to work together, but I have talked to a few people, and the initial idea was for me to help them with tax returns, but some of them do tax resolution and I don't. But they might need like bookkeeping cleanup. So even if I don't help them with taxes, like we have different areas that we're stronger in. And so combining forces.
Yep.
And then Shanika, have you gotten any deals out of this? Shanika?
I'm here, I'm sorry. Out of
the lists. Have you taken advantage of any names that I've referred to you?
Oh, yes. Actually, I've called several of them. We are still basically like in a negotiation phase, like if that's what you want to call it.
What are you negotiating?
Right. How much either I'm going to pay them or something.
Right. What do you think? What do you think she's negotiating, Glenn?
Right.
No, I wanted to know how much. No. Anyway, Richard has really gotten lucky. He's working. Richard, who are you working with?
I'm trying to work with Tammy, and you give me an additional list. So I've been preoccupied. That's kept me from trying to talk with the other folks on the list. We've had a lot of busy activity this last week.
Nice. Yeah, I think that'll continue. And kind of my question, Glenn, is it's a little bit of a leading question because like I looked at the list as well, so I kind of like know the answer, and even like the collaboration opportunities that Heather mentioned, right, is like you think you're talking to somebody about one thing, like about preparing tax returns, but then you find out, oh, hey, they need all these other services that, and a couple of them you're like really well suited to help with, like given, for example, Heather with Butterfly Bookkeeping, her bookkeeping background, like, so there's this whole nexus around business clients. That's kind of my point, is that, but there's other nexuses other than just opportunity. There's nexuses of getting embroiled in really messy stuff that is very swampy and very, very, very difficult at times, especially if you don't have a confident process or if you're not pricing the work. I don't know if you would say aggressively, but profitably. So I wanted to bring Sean on to, we've been doing this multi-part, well, I'm trying to build a process checklist. So like a step-by-step checklist for working with business tax clients where I can give everybody a checklist and I have like a bunch of perspective and input from different Dream Team members and other mentors where, you know, it's informed by a lot of perspectives about how we're, you know, to do things in a way that's profitable, good service for clients, specifically with business clients. So I wanted to bring Sean in to kind of share his perspective on it. In one of the first parts that we were talking about, Sean and I were kind of joking, but it was like one of those jokes. It's not really a joke about hating balance sheets and having balance sheets being a major, what would you call it, Sean? How do you describe it?
A nightmare, because most clients, one, don't understand what it is, and two, don't keep it. And then if they do QuickBooks, a lot of times, you know, so I do a lot of real estate. I just got off the phone with someone before I was a couple minutes late. She goes, well, what do you want me to do with the private money? It's like, well, that's not a QuickBooks anymore. You know, and then she doesn't have the right interest accumulating, but she's not going to pay him back till she sells a house in 2 years.
Yep.
She's doing a lease to own.
Yep.
It's like, all right, so now what are you going to do with that? She doesn't have it written down anywhere.
Yep.
So she sends you a QuickBooks, it's not in there. But now her balance sheet doesn't make sense because I'm looking at it. It's like you got a $10 million worth of real estate. You have this much money in the bank. You have this much in mortgages. We're missing $500,000 somewhere. Where'd it go?
And that's just only one client in your day. You know, that's only just one. So those are the kinds of things where it's like we're being asked to do a job where you don't have what you need in order to do your job. And then you really have any complaining about that is really not going to help anybody because that's just like reality. It's like, you know, it's like complaining about the weather or something. It just is how it is. So one of the things that I love about what Sean's done with his business over the past few years is be able to grow your business clientele, Sean, and be able to work with those kinds of situations where maybe like a more traditional accountant or something like that wouldn't even like want to service that client. Or can you tell us a little bit about like the opportunity associated with helping business clients that aren't all buttoned up as far as like having all their accounting straight and all that? Is that like really even a part of your value proposition, is that you can handle those kinds of conversations and other people can't?
Yeah. So, and that was part of my joke the other day that bad bookkeeping is how I learned to do balance sheets.
Yeah, right.
So, I mean, I don't do bookkeeping. So right off the bat, I don't know how to input QuickBooks. I don't know what people are doing or how they get it there. So for me, it's okay. Assume the P&L is right. Now it's a jigsaw puzzle.
Okay.
I know the P&L is right and it's not balanced. Now I've got to figure out what parts move what other parts. And it took a while because I didn't have the accounting background to say, all right, if I move this piece, it reacts this way over here. And once you do enough of them, it's like any lever. If I move this happens over here, and then eventually you try to narrow down, well, through experience, well, where would the problem be hiding most? Like doing enough to say the first question was, do you have a private money lender? Well, yeah.
Okay.
Where'd you report it? No, I didn't report it anywhere. Well, if I'm just focused on the books and records,
right,
I'm never going to find it. As
opposed to really understanding how your client group, the unconventional things they do, and like what might be causing like a $500,000 mismatch or a significant mismatch like that.
Yeah. So now I'm not going to spend 40 hours going through the books. The point, if I know something that big, then there's something that's missed. Well, if someone's done the books well and they missed it, what else could it be?
Interesting. So I see you're logged into my little rough draft where I'm taking some notes here, and I was doing this mainly like for my team members that are taking on these like, you know, S Corp clients specifically, that mainly I should say that are like, significant revenue, like 300,000 to like 2 million type of revenue, where you have to do a balance sheet. Hopefully the person's do accounting, that kind of thing. And what I'm finding when I'm building this out is that, like, the instructions that I'm writing to the tax preparer have a lot to do with getting into the person's QuickBooks and like looking at things and trying to, like, before you even start the tax return, make sure that it's like ready to go. But you're not doing that on your end. You said you're assuming that the profit and loss is correct. Are you assuming that, Sean, only if, like, that they have a credible bookkeeper, or do you make that assumption even if the person's doing their books? How do you kind of like feel okay to getting into the tax return when that it could be kind of really just jacked up potentially?
I'll start off for the most part assuming the P&L is right, and then kind of work from there. If someone's working with an accomplished bookkeeper, then going forward, I'll just assume those records are fine, and I won't spend a lot of time trying to fix the P&L. And I'll assume the money, the problem is somewhere else. The loan's not booked properly because maybe they didn't tell somebody about it. Maybe it's outside money. Maybe there's capital that was put in that they didn't tell anyone about. There's personal credit cards that were used that people didn't report. I used personal business stuff for personal things that maybe didn't flow through the right way. So I've gotten more along the lines of using the different levers and pulleys to say, if this number over here is this, then I should see something over here, kind of like a causal and effect kind of situation.
Yeah.
If I'm not seeing that, then something's broken down in the process.
And so if how many times do you go through? How many times do you go through so you're assuming, let's say you assume the profit and loss is decently correct, or like workably correct, you could say, right? So then you go through, you do the tax return, and let's say it's a partnership tax return. How many times out of 10 do you think that the balance sheet it doesn't balance? Is it like 10 out of 10?
10 out of 10. Yeah.
Okay. So you're batting 1,000?
It's pretty close. It's rare you see one that's the same, because even a lot of times, if someone does good books, there's a lot of miscommunication over what's a capital improvement versus an expense. So now you've got to back things out of the P&L and say, this doesn't really belong there. So eventually you're going to go back and make adjustments. But for the most part, I wouldn't say that's a bookkeeping error. I'd rather someone make a mistake and put it on the paper so I can find it and then question it versus trying to dig it out. That makes sense?
Yeah, it does. And so if anybody is on here and saying like, gosh, I dream about the day that one day of my balance sheet is going to balance, and it's going to be
the next time I see that would be the first time I've seen it.
Okay, so that's not just me then. It's not just something that I've been doing wrong for these years. Is it normal? Is it possibly normal?
I would assume it's normal, because this morning I was giving a lecture to a group of entrepreneurs. My comment is, when people get into it, they get into it to do what it is they'd love to do, not to run a business. Most of them have never thought about running the business. So if you tell them, well, give me your balance sheet, usually the next question in their mouth is, what's that?
Yeah, right.
So to assume they did a good job of remembering, oh, my balance sheet, I have to tell you I have all these credit card debts.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have business credit cards, but oh yeah, I already bought stuff on my personal credit card. Well, there's a good chance that the person running QuickBooks is only downloading the business credit cards.
Yeah, that's right.
So when I look at the expenses and the P&L, and then I look at the capital contributions, and they don't line up, or it doesn't make sense to me.
Yep.
So some of the QuickBooks might have gotten it to balance somehow by saying it might have been here or there, but it doesn't make sense. A lot of times because there's, something that was done personally that someone didn't report, or didn't flow through the records.
And that's something that from being a business person yourself and having worked with so many of these kinds of clients, that you just kind of know that that's a likely thing that's causing the issue.
And a lot of that, as you got down to the point in here when you say, you know, you have an interview and a conversation, so you kind of get everything started, but then this way you can prep the conversation with the client. So one of the first things I always ask them about is, personally, do you have anything that you, business-wise, you put on a personal credit card, that you borrow money from somebody?
Right.
And 9 out of 10 times they're going to tell me yes. I'm like, okay, well, where is that in here? I'm like, oh, I got to report that. So that's when we wind up going back and making an adjustment to the P&L, because it turns out they were paying interest to a buddy, where they have stuff piling up in the personal credit cards. So now you add that into the balance sheet, and now it's not balanced anymore.
Yep.
And now you got to ask the question, well, where did the rest of the money come from? You know, when someone thought it was balanced, and when we had the distributions right, the capital contributions right, because it works, and no one thought to ask more questions like, well, was there something on here I'm not seeing? And when you talk about flushing out with people, you know, in that interview process, even if it looks like it's right, you got to find out what they did that they forgot to tell the bookkeeper about. Like use that personal credit card or borrow money from a friend or a family member. You know, because a lot of times if someone's running in the negative, you say, well, they added contribution. Well, I'm looking at other parts of your return, and where did you get the money from?
Yeah, interesting.
Hey, Andy,
Like
David has a question.
Go
David?
for it, David.
Yeah, Andy, you said something that really resonated with me. Well, this a while ago, and I think that this is close to your heart. Is yeah, that's nice, Mr. Accountant Guy, that you need a balance sheet to do your job. But how does that help me? So I'm curious how, like, we understand as accountants how valuable it is to have a good balance sheet. I'm just wondering how you would communicate something like that to a client that may only see that as an expense as far as time and money.
Yep.
My favorite excuse. So last year I found someone, they were getting all this stuff wrong. They go, we didn't really want to pay with you. You know, I billed them for the time because they brought it to me. And I had to go back and tell them their balance sheet was wrong because there was all this private capital off to the side. And they're like, well, I understand why I have to pay for it. I said, well, I just found $100,000 worth of missed capital that you could put down. That would cost you $35,000 in tax losses.
Yeah.
Does it matter to you now?
Right.
They're like, oh, I didn't realize it was going to cost me that much money. I better pay attention to that in the future. So it basically quantified them the problems they're going to run into, or how much, not even a problem. The IRS wouldn't care if they overpaid by $35,000. IRS be like, thank you, let's do this again some other time. But, you know, kind of explain to them what it's costing them by not doing.
Yeah, I think it's a great question, and even John, aka the Piano Man, was saying it seems to them to be an inconvenience, and it does. You know, it's like balance sheet. You know, gosh, could you be any more annoying talking about your balance? It doesn't balance. I don't care if it balances. What are you this guy talking about, man? Are you done with my tax return yet, or what? Like, let's get this over with. But he's saying here that like in referencing the need maybe to pay capital gains. So I think, correct me if I'm wrong, like just at the most basic level for clients, especially business clients, is like lowest taxes possible, not going to jail or getting in trouble or getting audited, right? Those are really the only two things. And then like not spending excessive time on all this type of stuff, right? Because I want to be running my actual business and I need to be paying attention to that, or else I'm not going to be in business. So some variety of those are really the only motivating, you know, factors that I've ever seen to move the needle. And definitely if you're, you know, if the things that you're doing are being portrayed to the client as, you know, if we don't do this, you're going to overpay by 35,000, like Sean just said, and that could be happening year to year. You don't even know. You're definitely talking that client's language as far as then being able to motivate them to, you know, do what they need to do. So are you, so on a mechanical level, Sean, so you're not getting into QuickBooks at all. You're like, I don't get involved with that. I don't get added as a user. I don't do that.
I wouldn't even know how to log in.
Nice. I like that. I respect that. And so the reports that you get are in in Excel, in PDF, it could be either or. How do you intake their documents, and like which documents do you request?
A lot of people do use the QuickBooks. I have some clients that they're more advanced in Excel. I'll let them use Excel. But if I can tell they don't know how to do a pivot table or something like that, or some sort of a VLOOKUP, and they can't say, I'm going to put this expense, going to carry it over, then basically require them to get a bookkeeper, someone like, or send me something that's with a balance sheet and a P&L that's, PDF formatted.
Okay. So if they have some kind of like jerry rig type of thing that you're like, this is just going to be a hassle, you might tell them, hey, you got to just go get a bookkeeper and give me something that's like readable in some kind of format that even makes halfway sense.
Or if they have QuickBooks, I'll have to tell them I got to pay someone else to get these things in line. Or if I've got to do that adjusted math, like if I look at it and I'm looking at the P&L and I'm looking at their balance sheet, but they tell me that it doesn't make sense, and I got to sit there and figure it out. Well, I'm going to build into the point where next year they're going to hire a bookkeeper.
Yeah. Okay.